Hey guys, it's Micaela. Well, it's a new year. Hello 2020! Most of us are reflecting on this past year, so I thought I'd share with you a roundup of my favorite books of 2019. Last year I filmed a video about 6 books that changed my life, and one of my goals for 2019 was to read more. Around this time last year, my mom got really into audiobooks, and just for context, I listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of music. So once my mom got into the whole audiobook jam, she was like,
Micaela, you have to listen to audiobooks.
you already listen to podcasts and music, you should get on the audiobook bandwagon, because in the amount of hours that you devote to podcasts and audiobooks, you could finish a book. So I was like, not a bad idea. I started off with reading You Are Badass at Making Money, which was on my list of books to read for 2019, and it kind of still fit in with the podcast jam that I was grooving with, because I listened to a lot of self-help and improvement and business and entrepreneurship podcasts, so it kind of fit in with the rhythm of the jam I was already working with. So I listened to that book and I finished it in a week. So then after that I was like, I think my mom's onto something. With all this dead time that I have walking, driving, and editing pictures, doing my makeup, I can get a lot of reading done. So I then read my next book. But before I share with you all of my favorite books from 2019, let me talk to you about the apps I use. This is not sponsored, just FYI. I use Libby and I use Hoopla, and those are 2 apps that are connected with the library. So basically you just rent the book for 3 weeks, just like you do at a regular library. You need a library card to register, and then the books are free, and then you return the books after 3 weeks, or you can return it early if you finish it early. And I like using those apps because number 1, they're free. Number 2, I don't need to be keeping every single book that I read. If I really love a book, I'll then buy it and then put it on my bookshelf for display. But yeah, those are the 2 apps that I use, so let's get into this video. I already mentioned this, but the first book that I read was You Are a Badass at Making Money, and that is the first book on my list of favorite books that I read in 2019. You're a Badass at Making Money is in the same series as the You Are a Badass is the first book. You're a Badass at Making Money is the second book. I think it's called You Are a Badass Be a Badass Every Day. You Are a Badass Every Day is the third book by Jen Sincero. So it's a trilogy of 3 books all about entrepreneurship, business, and how to grow your self-worth to achieve what you really deserve in life. Jen talks about the law of attraction and vibrating at different energy levels, and I am really into the law of attraction too, so it kind of spoke to me. But she explains the law of attraction in a non-woo-woo, hippy-dippy kind of way that resonates with a lot of people, like my dad. I really resonate with her dry, sassy sarcasm, and she has a straight shooter kind of no beating around the bush kind of mentality. One thing that I really liked about the book is Jen gets nitty-gritty in getting the compensation you feel like you deserve for different jobs or services or what have you. And the compensation doesn't have to be monetary, but it probably is monetary, so just for the sake of making this video simple, I'm going to refer to it as monetary compensation. So anyway, she says, take your dream compensation, monetary compensation, and think of like the best, like in a best case scenario, what money would you get from the job, project, service, product that you develop. Now take that number and double it. That, my friends, is the compensation you deserve. This book really put things in perspective for myself to not shortchange my worth. Rising Strong by Brené Brown. Now technically, Rising Strong is the follow-up book to Daring Greatly, but I feel like you can read them out of sequence and you won't miss out on anything. The only reason I read them out of sequence was because Rising Strong came in sooner than Daring Greatly, which I had on hold too. So I actually liked Rising Strong better than Daring Greatly because I feel like Brené gets deeper into topics that she talks about in Daring Greatly, and I'm just a super analytical person and I love deep diving into different topics. Brené is known for being a vulnerability expert, so one huge portion of the book is how to start difficult conversations. And I really appreciated the verbiage that she uses to start difficult conversations. She says to use the phrase, "the story I'm making up is," which kind of takes the blame off of anyone, because I feel like when you start difficult conversations, the person that you're talking to might feel like they're getting accused of doing something, but when saying "the story I'm making up is," you kind of lead in with the idea that your mind is making up the story, but you're just talking to them to talk things out. I just think Brene Brown is a plethora of knowledge, and she has taught me so much about myself and how to interact with others and have healthy relationships. Here's a story by Marie McCormick. I grew up watching reruns of The Brady Bunch, so Marie McCormick's book, She Plays Marcia Brady on The Brady Bunch, was forever on my list of books to read, and it is it's pretty intense. I can't believe it's a memoir, because there are parts of the book where I was reading and I was like, whoa, I can't believe this is someone's real life. I don't want to give too much away, but it really pulls back the curtain and reveals a lot of the things that Marie McCormick was dealing with when she was filming The Brady Bunch, and it really opened my eyes to see that there was so much going on behind the scenes. I had no idea, because The Brady Bunch is kind of the epitome of such a wholesome American family. City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. It seems like everything Elizabeth Gilbert touches is just dipped in nostalgia and sentiment, and City of Girls was so good. The novel takes place in 1940s in New York City and is written in the form of a letter from an elderly person to the daughter of a good friend of hers. So it has this kind of nostalgic, lost in time, mothery feel that just makes you feel so warm and fuzzy. It deals with show business in the 1940s in New York City, and it just, I don't know, it just made me feel good. It wasn't like a thriller, it wasn't a memoir, but it just had a feel good kind of, this is someone's flavorful, fun life that was full of adventures and good times. And it made me have appreciation for life and everything that it has to offer. There were sad points in the book because it takes place in the 1940s, so it did have to do a lot with the war. But I just had such a good feeling after reading the book. I can't describe it, and I really feel like it would make a good movie. Not that all books should be turned into movies, but if they did a good job on the movie, I think that it would make a really good movie. So many of my friends have watched the series Big Little Lies, except for me. So the book was on my list, and I always like reading a book before I watch the film adaptation. It kind of takes a while to get into it because there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of plot set up, but then the story keeps building upon layer on layer, and the book is structured kind of interestingly because there are different events that just keep leading up to this main climax, which is at the very end. So it keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you wanting to read more because you want to find out what everything is building up to. I really liked the book because it deals with a lot of gossip, and it takes place in a suburban town, and I grew up in a suburban town, and I found a lot of similarities with the culture. And the book is also by an Australian author, so in the audiobook version, the narrator has an Australian accent, which I really liked. The last book on my list is probably my favorite from 2019. Big Little Lies got me into mysteries, and then I, on a whim, put An Anonymous Girl on hold because I read, what's that book called? The Wife Between Us, and it's by the same authors, and I really liked that book. So I started An Anonymous Girl, and to be honest with you, it started off kind of slow. Same thing with Big Little Lies. There's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of plot set up, and then once it got really interesting, I'd say about like 2 hours in listening to it, I could not put it down. It was like an emotional roller coaster for my mind to process. I had to take breaks because I just felt like I was actually out of breath listening to it because it was so intense. To give you an idea of how into it I got, I was so close to finishing the book right before I went to bed one night, and I actually couldn't sleep because I needed to find out how it ended. So I woke up at 2 a.m. and I listened to the last 2 hours of the book, and it was worth losing all that sleep over it because it was so good up to the last word. This past year, I rekindled my love for reading, and it felt so pure and unadulterated to get caught up in a book that was just for me. It reminded me of when I was 12-year-old me with a pile of books just devouring one right after another, And it felt very healthy, actually, to indulge myself in something that was just for my fun. And it had nothing to do with work, it had nothing to do with school. It felt like I rediscovered something that I lost along the way of growing up, and it felt good to get her back. As a visual person, yes, I would probably enjoy physically sitting down and cracking open a book more than listening to a book, but life is full of different chapters, and in this chapter of my life, audiobooks just fit in better than physical books, and part of life is learning to adapt to what best serves you. It's probably good for me actually to listen to a book because I'm more of a visual person, just kind of hone in on the audio skills because it's not my dominant sense. I ended up finishing the year off reading 31 books, and I know for a fact that I would not have read even a quarter of that if I had tried to physically read books. So thank you, Mom, for the intro to audiobooks. I'm really curious to see if any of you guys have read any of these books, and if so, if you liked them. And did you guys read any books that you really enjoyed in 2019 that you want to share? Feel free to share them down below. And also, going in line with reflecting on 2019 and the new chapter 2020, I wrote a blog post all about looking back on my accomplishments of 2019 and goals that I want to achieve in 2020, and I will leave a link to that in the description below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that notifications bell to be notified of every time I upload. That just never flows off the tongue no matter how many times I say it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!